Score more with the college-branded Venmo debit card and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash. Got paid back? With the Venmo debit card, you can instantly access your balance and spend on what you want, like game day snacks, gear, tickets, and more. The more you do, the more cash back you can earn. Plus, there's no monthly fee or minimum balance. Sign up now at Venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
For the News and Observer, I'm Kyle Ingram, politics reporter and this week's guest host of Under the Dome. I'm joined today by our Washington correspondent, Danielle Battaglia. It's well over a year away, but the money, the polls, and the attacks have already come out in full force. That's right, we're talking about North Carolina's U.S. Senate race today. There's still a chance other candidates enter the fray, but right now it's looking like a matchup between North Carolina's two-term Democratic Governor Roy Cooper and Michael Whatley, who was the chair of the Republican National Committee and previously the chair of the North Carolina Republican Party. Got a lot to get to today, so let's bring in Danielle. First, you want to tell us how this matchup came together? I know we're quite far away from the primary, but it looks like this is it.
It came quickly. Senator Tom Tillis dropped out. I believe it was in June. I was on vacation, so I think you got to deal with that. But Senator Tom Tillis, he is our incumbent senator. He decided not to run again for re-election due to an ongoing, I don't know that feud's the right word, but feud he was having with Senate Republicans and President Donald Trump over the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and this one particular provision in it that is going to strip Medicaid from about 650,000 North Carolinians. And he was really not happy by that number or the fact that it was going to happen. So he basically said he did not want people to think that his Senate re-election campaign would have anything to do with the decisions he was making in Washington. He pulled that off the table, chose not to run for re-election, which led to every Republican in the state, it felt like, saying, I'm going to run, or I might run, or I'm considering running. And so we saw this mad dash for basically getting Trump's blessing on a run, seeing who would be the final person. Everyone was waiting for his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, to decide whether she was going to run or not. And ultimately, she chose to stay at Fox News in her hosting gig. She released a new song for her music career. And we got Michael Whatley. Trump came in and endorsed him. He is currently still the Republican National Committee chairman, but I believe this week or next week, they're going to do an election to pick a new chairman, and there's only one person running, so pretty much a shoo-in. And then former Governor Cooper, he was rumored to be running for, I think, well over a year now, and finally made it official about the same time that all this was going on. So, exciting matchup we're seeing.
Yeah, and he quickly cleared the Democratic field, right? Because there had been another person announced for a while.
Yeah, so former Representative Wiley Nickel, he had declared, I think in 2023, he had announced, I'm not going to run for re-election. He had been gerrymandered out of his own district, and he wanted to focus on his Senate race. There was always talk about if Governor Cooper gets in, does Wiley stay in or does he go out? He ultimately chose to leave the race and is now considering a Wake County district attorney run. I don't think he's made that official at this point, but that's the latest rumor. So get excited, everyone.
All right. So like we said, it's still really early, but there was a poll that came out already about this race, right? What did we find out from that?
Yeah, the poll has a strong lead for Roy Cooper in North Carolina. And what's really interesting about this poll is it came from Carolina Journal, who is a pretty partisan outlet. They're very conservative, and they're showing that that Cooper's ahead. Now, there are conspiracy theories that they do this early to make Democrats feel very secure in their race or whatever. But it seems to match the tenor of the race right now of, he's got the most name ID. Michael Whatley, even though he's been our GOP chairman in North Carolina, unless you're really into party politics, you're probably not paying attention to that. He's also the RNC chairman, but again, if you're not really into party politics, probably not paying attention to that. He's never run before, where Cooper's been running since 1987, and he has won every race he's ever won in. He's been our governor. He's been our attorney general. He has leadership roles in the House, not the House. What am I trying to say? In the General Assembly. So he, he's got that name recognition that Michael Whatley now has to fight for. What's interesting about this race is that as soon as they both announced, they also both kind of went quiet, which I think is because they're fundraising on that like initial output of their race. But it is funny to see like so much focus going in this race and then complete silence, or sort of.
Well, and even before that poll, does it seem like national Democrats are getting really excited about the prospects of this race? Because I think they weren't necessarily so sure about the Senate map before, but now it looks like they may have a better chance of flipping it in 26.
Yeah, I think having an incumbent Republican in there is always difficult. And the thing with Senator Tillis is that he is a moderate Republican. And so, he could appeal to some Democrats who might think that that Cooper's too far left. I'm not saying he is, but there is that, thought process that could be there. Where, Whatley is so far right. He's gonna, if you have a Republican who's not a fan of President Trump, there's no way that he can distance himself from Trump's agenda, because they're basically tied together with the RNC pushing Trump's agenda. And so this is a really important race for the Senate. The Democrats are trying to regain the majority, and it's such a slim majority that in order to get North Carolina, it's now a strong possibility that they could, especially with that name ID and, everything that's on the table with this race. I think they're very excited that this is flippable and could help them regain that majority that they really want.
So Cooper, like you said, he has a lot of name recognition, but what do voters need to know about Michael Whatley? What is his platform? What's his history? What's going on there?
So Michael Whatley, I didn't mean to laugh at that. I was laughing at the whole crux of the question, but not him. Michael Whatley, I said he never ran for office, but he's been around politics his entire career. So he started in high school on Jesse Helms' campaign. He was chief of staff for Elizabeth Dole. He worked on George W. Bush's not re-election campaign, his vote count in Florida. He's been around politics for a very long time. He was also a lobbyist for the big oil industry, which you're going to see a lot of attacks on him for that, because lobbyists are never very, they always have a bad rap. Sorry, lobbyists listening to this, because I know we have some. We love you. But so he's getting some crap for that and being a DC insider and all that. And so, yeah, I mean, his career is not your typical political career where you see, someone like Roy Cooper, who's been in politics forever, but like Whatley also has been in politics forever, just in a different path.
Yeah, it's interesting to jump from never having run in an election before to running for U.S. Senate. Is that something that people are bringing up now, just that trajectory?
Yeah, we've talked about it in our own newsroom, but the person we are all thinking of is Elizabeth Dole. She had never run before and became a U.S. Senator. She also has one of those, she's been around politics. Her husband was in politics. So also like an interesting trajectory where it kind of makes sense. But not having that history before, she wasn't tested before. So like Whatley hasn't been politically tested. Who knows what's in his background, who that could potentially come up. It'll be very interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Donald Trump as well had never held office and then went to the presidency. So
that is true.
Though.
The
all right, well,
TV host to president.
Yeah. Well, I want to get us to our break really quickly, but when we come back, I want to talk more about where each candidate stands in early contributions for their campaign, and also about what sort of issues could define this race. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
So good, so good, so good.
New spring arrivals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Get ready to save big with up to 60% off Rag & Bone, Marc Jacobs, Free People, and more.
How did I not know
Rack has Adidas?
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm politics reporter Kyle Ingram here with our Washington correspondent, Danielle Battaglia. We were talking before the break about the North Carolina U.S. Senate race with Roy Cooper versus Michael Whatley. I want to ask now, early into this race, how is each candidate looking fundraising-wise? Where are they bringing their money in? Who's got more? What's it look like?
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot out of former Governor Roy Cooper. He has broken fundraising records for a Senate race. I forget what that number was. Do you remember? It was very high. It was a very high number. So Democrats were very excited by, breaking records. Your first 24 hours, huge deal. And this is the entire country, not just North Carolina. So they were very excited to put that out. The thing with fundraising that always drives me crazy is they don't have to report right now. So we haven't seen that number on an official document. We are taking them at their word, which, I have no reason to doubt. But I don't think we've seen anything out of Whatley, which makes me think he has not broken records. And one thing to point out with Cooper is a lot of these what they were saying with that is they were like small dollar donations from individual funders. Some of it came from the Democratic Party, but the majority was from those small dollar donations. He was very excited on social media, thanking his supporters for that. It's kind of adorable. You could just see the excitement in his face of how happy he was to get these. I have not heard from Michael Whatley and the numbers on him. Would love to see them and compare how he's doing. I expect we'll see that when they start filing. I think I want to say October is the next filing period, but I could be totally off on that, so nobody quote me.
So we've had a reprieve here in North Carolina since November of all of those political ads, but I assume we'll be seeing senatorial TV spots pretty soon.
Yeah, I think some of them have already launched actually in North Carolina. You're not in any of the target markets that I've heard yet. So get ready, Kyle, because they're coming your way. But the Senate ads are interesting already. We've seen some vitriol. And what has surprised me is directed at Governor Cooper is attacks on his family, which seems very early and kind of low to, there you always hear mobster rules, you don't go after women and children. And that was the first thing out of the boat was women and children that we were attacking. So it's already an interesting dynamic to see that attack on his daughter. And so I'm interested to see where this race goes because we started low. I'm wondering, will we continue that route or are we going to get a little classier?
Yeah, and we're coming off already a very messy, very scandal-filled gubernatorial race in North Carolina. It'd be interesting to see if we can handle another one of those for a national office. But that does bring me to the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is what's going to be the defining issues of this race? Is this a referendum on Trump or is there more specific North Carolina things that are going to come up?
Well, the midterms is always a referendum on the president that's in office. I shouldn't say always, but it often plays out as a referendum. So if voters aren't happy with the job that the president is doing, you're going to see that at the ballot box. And it tends to harm the party that is in power. So right now we have a Republican president. The Republicans have to worry a little bit about retaining their seats in the House and the Senate. That's just always the rules of politics since I believe the 1800s. It might have been earlier than that. So that's going to be at play. But also I think because of the issues surrounding the One Big Beautiful Bill and Medicaid specifically, and because Cooper is the one who helped expand Medicaid in North Carolina. I think that's going to be another defining point that we see often come up in this election.
So I'm trying to think about what each candidate would be like in the Senate. And we know that the MAGA base was unhappy with Tillis because he broke with the president several times. I think we can expect that Whatley would be more in line with the president's agenda if he were in the Senate. But what would Cooper be like? Because we've seen Republicans target him and say that he's too left. They've brought up, his veto records, vetoing some culture war bills in the North Carolina General Assembly. Would he be a part of the progressive wing in Congress, do you think, or would he be more of one of those moderate Democrats?
It's funny because I keep hearing from both sides answers to this, and I really want to dig into his record, which you may know better than me, having been in the General Assembly coverage more than I was. But I don't think he's going to be as moderate as Senator Tillis. Like, Senator Tillis would work with Democrats across the aisle to get large pieces of legislation passed because he thought it was important to do that, to actually work to better America through different means. And he wasn't afraid of upsetting his base. Now, I'm not saying that Governor Cooper is different on that, but I do think he sides with his base more often. He hasn't really upset his base that I've seen too often. So I picture him being a little more to the left than Tillis is to the right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's so hard to gauge the record for a governor in North Carolina specifically, since we have such a weak governorship. All of his actions are sort of reactions to the action of the legislature. So it's not all he's put forward his own bills or anything like that,
His team is saying to me, and I think it's a strong point, is because of what you just said, he's had to work across the aisle a lot to accomplish things like Medicaid expansion. He's had to work with Republicans. So they think that the attack that he's too far left is a they don't agree with it because they say he's done this his entire career, has worked across party lines to accomplish things. So I think it's anyone's guessing game at this point, but I'm really excited to dig into that part of his policy work.
Okay. Well, real quick before we get to our headliners, I want to think about what North Carolina specific things are going to come up in this race. And I can imagine one of the big ones will be the effect on Medicaid from the One Big Beautiful Bill. Is there anything else that you think is going to be a flashpoint for North Carolinians specifically?
I feel like I'm grinning at you wickedly, and I'm sorry to say this, Kyle, but because President Trump has been saying all day he's signing an executive order today on election integrity. And that is something that Michael Whatley has also strongly pushed in North Carolina. I see that being a big issue in North Carolina coming up often. We're constantly redistricting. We're constantly looking at our maps and looking at whether our elections are being done appropriately. And by we, I mean North Carolina's people. I think that's going to come up a lot. I have the feeling that's going to keep you very busy soon.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, there's an elections omnibus bill sitting in the legislature right now. I'm sure we're going to see things added to it. There might be a reaction to the Trump executive order soon. So we'll be on our toes with that. But on that note, let's transition to our headliner of the week. Danielle, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so right now I've actually been watching out the window for planes to be landing from Europe because it sounds like half of the leaders of Europe are descending on DC as we're recording this. President Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is flying into DC today, I believe right now, to meet with President Trump about his meeting from Friday with President Putin of Russia. And he is bringing a team of European leaders who very abruptly canceled their plans to be in DC. This is unprecedented. It doesn't happen. I do not believe they were invited by Trump, but they are taking a family photo. That's what it's called. So it seems like he's welcoming them with open arms. But I think all eyes will be on DC in the next couple of days to see what happens with this meeting with Zelensky and Trump. It did not go well the first time he came in Trump's administration. Well, this time around. And I think that we will definitely be focused in on whether there can be peace between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
What about you?
A lot going on in DC lately. Mine, I'm going to take it a little more local. If you thought national politics were chaotic and full of big personalities, take a look at local politics. One of our reporters who covers Durham, Kristen Johnson, just published a story on our website about a mixer among the Durham City Council, where one council member repeatedly jabbed another council member and allegedly left bruises. They were having some sort of disagreement, not the first physical altercation this council member has been involved in. So go take a look at that. Some interesting stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Danielle. It's been a great episode, and we're going to close it out. So for the News and Observer, I'm Kyle Ingram. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Sign up for our political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.